Hi there, welcome back. This month the amazing Bernina Inspiration book has got some really cool things, but one thing caught my eye and it's called the Zippy bag, and it's this lovely bag that you can see here. It caught my eye because I had been given some beautiful leather, and I thought, oh, actually I might even just make that bag. So I'm going to show you the bag I've made, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to sew with leather. So I opened up my pattern and I traced out my pieces. So this is my upper front, right and left side. This is my lower front, so you can see it's a very easy bag, and this will join onto here with a zip, and then this one is the back of my bag. So this is a great bag to make because you can have it big or you can have it small. So I've teamed up my bag with some of our designer zips, and these zips are really nice. A designer in New Zealand had, they were closing down, and we purchased all their zips because they're ones we won't get again, and they had them made especially for their clothing range that they sold. And then because we sell all the Bernina products, instead of using a D-ring, I love these Bernina little clips, and I love these here. So what we've got here is we've got a little swivel hook, and it's really handy. So the bag can be worn, oops, tape measure around my neck. The bag can be worn like this as a deep bag, and in here I've done the most impractical lining, but I went to my mum's the other day and I found a box with some beautiful fabric my granddad had brought back from Hong Kong, and I decided I'd use it for the lining of my bag. So this beautiful heavy satin lining I've used for the inside of my bag, and I have fused Stay Flex interfacing, which is the lovely woven iron-on woven interfacing on both sides to give it really good stability, but the fabric itself is extremely heavy. So yeah, that's what I've lined inside it because I just think it's beautiful. And I've also done the same thing inside my pocket fronts. The one thing I would say I would change, next time I make one, I'm going to put a lower pocket in here with a zip, not a metal zip, but a plain zip, so I could put my passport and anything else in the back. When you're traveling, I think it would be quite good. So this bag can be worn across the shoulder like this, okay? Or it can be worn over your arm, but it also transfers into a smaller bag. So you just unclip these, clip them onto here, unclip this side, and clip it onto here, and you've got a really nice little bag, or an over the shoulder bag, which is probably a better way to wear it anyway. So I think they're really nice. If you wanted, you could put a magnet on here to hold it down, but I just don't think I will. I think I like it like this. But I'll tell you something, this cowhide is so soft and so nice to wear that I really like it, but I just feel it could benefit from having a zip at the back. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things you need to do when sewing leather, and how to put a zip in, because it's a very simple way of doing it with leather. So that's my bag. I'll hang it over my little model over here, like that. Okay, so when you're sewing leather, the first thing you want to do is to put a leather needle in. Now a leather needle has what's called a diamond head, and that needle penetrates through the leather. The one thing you can't do with leather is you cannot have a second chance of it, because it will make a hole in your leather. If you're not sure that your fabric is leather, you can get a needle. I'll just show you with any needle because I don't know what needle it is. If you want to try it with leather, what happens is when you put it in, it might be okay, but when you pull it out, it will pull the leather back, out. So you've got to be very, very careful what needle you work with. With the leather needle, it just punches through perfectly and doesn't pull the leather back out, if you know what I mean. So the back of this suede bit on the back. So when I'm testing, I know this is leather, so I don't need to worry. But there's a couple of other things you need to think about. So you've got your leather needle in, you're ready to sew on your leather. You then need to decide, do you want to use an ordinary thickness of thread, or do you want to use a thicker thread to make a feature? So I'm going to sew with both, and I'm going to show you. So obviously if you're sewing with leather, you're going to be sewing 2 pieces together. So let's just cut this. And I'll just sew these 2 pieces together so you can have a look. You very rarely sew right side to right side because you raw edge leather. You don't need to sew it perfectly in because you're just going to raw edge it. And then I'll show you how you put a zip in because it's so simple. Interesting that the thread makes a big difference how you want to do it, okay? I'm actually going to, I've decided I'm going to cut down the middle and overlap these to show you because it makes it a little bit easier because that's what you do on a proper project. Now I found the best way of putting these together is to use your glue pen. So this is the Sewline glue pen. You can get them from we sell them from Sewline or Bowen. They're exactly the same product. And they have the glue inside them and you just wind them up. And I'm just going to put it on the right side of one edge of my leather. And I want to run it all the way along. I'm not just doing dabs. I'm going all the way along. Here we are. Oh, wind it back down, put the lid on. If you're going to be using your glue pen a lot during the course of a day, you can get a little bowl and just put a wet wipe, like a hand towel with water in it, put it in your bowl, and then you can leave this open and just sit it on there so it keeps moist. The only time this will dry out is if it is left open in the air and you don't have the lid on or keep it moist. So when you're piecing and things like that, it's a really good one to leave in a bowl. Right, then you get a flat piece on your table and you simply just overlap this. It's pretty much just 6 mils, and you push down on your leather, and there you have it. I didn't bring my clapper home to show you. If you've got a wooden clapper, you can just put your wooden clapper on there and hold it down, and what that will do is that will set it and hold it down because it's heavier, but I did forget to bring it home. I'll show you that next time. All right, so I've got my leather needle in. I'm going to go halfway with normal thread, then I'm going to go all the way with a thicker thread so you can see the difference that it will make to the finish of your project. So this is standard normal sewing thread. And there, and remember I've got the oh, I didn't even put it in the threader right. I didn't think I'd got it in there right. Come around to the side, you can see where it goes, and then into there. Helps if you put it in the right place. Right, so I've got normal thread on. I'm going to put it onto straight sewing, but always lengthen your stitch. So you are top stitching it on. The next thing you need to do is decide on what foot you want to use. And my favourite foot for sewing leather is this one. Now this is called the 53 foot, and it is simply a straight stitch foot, and it's also nice and smooth. So you've got it's called a sliding straight stitch foot is actually what it's called. And so this product on here makes it slip over any difficult surfaces. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So it's either going to be green or white when you buy these feet. This one's green. So I'm going to put my foot up, and I'm going to place my fabric under. Now pretty much this will do a 3mm seam if you run the edge of your foot along the edge of your raw edge of your fabric. So it's on 2.5 length. Now that's fine, except for I want to go longer because I'm top stitching, and I've got one extra feature on this machine that's going to be brilliant for sewing on my zips, and that's my laser. So what it's got on here, if I lift that up, you can you see that little laser beaming? Not sure you can. Might have to show that on turning the machine around. But there's a laser on there and I can see exactly where my machine's going to stitch. So I'm going to lengthen this out. And I'm going to go to 3. And I'm just going to start sewing. And I need to tell my machine I've changed my foot. And I definitely do not want my lock off function on. So I'm going to foot 53. So I've told my machine. There it is there. And now it won't growl at me for not telling it. So make sure, the other thing you could do actually, you could put your straight stitch plate on if you're doing a lot of straight stitching. That's the other thing you could do. So I'm just going to do it with my straight stitch and 3 length. I'm not liking it, it needs to be longer. I'm going out to 3.5. Needs to be longer, I want a longer look. So this is with standard thread. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop and I'm going to do a stitch across, and I'm going to run my foot now along this edge, and I'm just going to run down just to show you you can do 2 rows just as easily. And this is with normal sewing thread. I'm going to lift that out and cut that. Now I'm going to put on the thicker thread. So I'm going to cut this at the back. Remember to cut your thread, pull your thread through from front to back, and in fact I keep all my threads, normally, don't have threads in there, in my bowl that I've made of threads. So this is the bowl I've previously made with all my offcuts of thread, and I've put it into my wash away fabric, and while it was flat I appliqued a little flour on it. And then I dunked it under warm water, and then I tipped it upside down on one of my mixing bowls, and I had Glad wrap on that bowl. Then I let it dry, and then I turned it over and I've got a nice firm bowl. So I usually keep all my threads in the bowl, not these threads sitting on the side here. So this is standard thread, okay, and that's just 3.5 length and normal weight thread. Now I'm going to go on to a thicker thread. So by looking at that, with a thicker thread, I think I'll go 4 length. So I'm going to go a nice long length. So I'll go 4 length. Now this thread I'm going to use is called extra strong thread. I actually prefer it to top stitching thread because it's not as thick, but I really like how heavy it looks on the leather. So I'm going to use extra strong thread and see what that looks like. I don't need to use it underneath because they're all polyester threads. You could even use a linen thread if you liked. Now I've never tried using this thick thread with my automatic needle threader, so this will be the first time. Let's have a look. Perfect. So there's something I haven't done before, so there we go, perfect. So I'm going to just sew from here down, and let's have a look what we think of this one. So when you're starting this, I'm just going to do it in the middle here. I'll just hold my thread there. I'm lining my laser up from my last lot of stitching. And remember, I'm not reversing because I'm just showing you a sample. You'll get a totally different look. Oh yeah, you see, I like that. I like that better. Oh, this one, sorry, I did 1 stitch before, it should have been 2, so I could run that evenly. Oh, too close to the edge. If that happens, just lift it up, pull your work, and go forward a bit. That was too close to the edge. Should have had a little buffer piece of fabric. Stitch down. Nice and slow, there's no rush when you're doing it. definitely that's my choice. Scissors, you can still use your scissors. And there we go. So you can see clearly here that the extra strong thread is definitely a better look for what we're doing. Okay? Now, the next thing you need to know is when you're sewing your seam. So this seam is what I will do on my bag that I put somewhere. Here we are. So this will be the back of my new bag. And remember I said I'm actually going to cut a hole in that and I'm going to put a seam in that. But these are the front. So this is my base. And this is my... Oh, tell me I didn't cut that wrong. No, that's all right. There's one of my fronts. And there is another one somewhere, which I'll find in due course, hopefully. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to insert a zip in here, and then I'll show you how to insert a zip when you're cutting a hole. All right? So when you're going to be putting a zip in here, I want to put a bit of leather at the end so that I'm not having to try and sew over here because it's impossible. So I'm going to add a little tab to the end of this. So when I sew this in and I sew this in and I sew around my zip, I'm going to be sewing onto leather. Can you see that? So I'm going to put a tab of leather on the end of this, just on the end of here. Now to do that, I'm really hoping that is not my tab that I've cut, but I'm feeling it is. I might have to do another one. What I'm going to do is I'm just, oh, this will do. Perfect. I'm just going to sew a little piece of leather across here, and it only needs to be the width of my zip. So here's my zip, and here's my bit of leather, and it only needs to be the width of that zip. Now, if I use this side of the foot, because it's only 3mm, that's going to be plenty close enough for me to top stitch that on. So I'll glue it so it doesn't move. So I'll just glue my leather like that. And I'll stick that onto there. Now what I'm doing is I'm just sticking it to just below the base of my zip. So I'm not going to be sewing anywhere near this, and I won't have any problem when I finish my bag. Okay? So that's all it's going to there. So I'm just going to straight stitch across there. See how I just held that little thread so I can go across there. I don't need to back stitch it. And needle up and pull my thread out, and I'll just cut that there, and there I have my little tab. Okay, so this is going to be stitched top stitch from here to here. Now on this bag, I have to show you now, on this bag it has a little piece of leather that I've joined on for the middle. In the pattern it was a smaller piece, but my zips were only this size. So you may need to modify that little piece of leather there that they've given you. So what you can do, because you're going to be joining two zips together, get both your zips ready. Here's my other zip here. Lay down your fabric, this is your size, and this is your zip here. That's there. And that can't go any closer to that edge because of your seam you need to do here. That one's going to go there, and this one is going to come here like this. So I just lay it all down and sat it so I knew that would be exactly in that spot. And this is the piece of leather I need. So it's basically just a piece of leather. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And I can shape it afterwards. What it is, it's a piece of leather that's need to be going to be angled so I can fit both of those in. Okay, so I can use this as my pattern. This is my shape, and I can just draw it and cut a piece out of that. So this is my leather's going to go this way. I'll try and do it so it's on the right angle, on the right grade. So what I'll do is I will just cut this. It's easier to do it and get it exactly right. Make that straight, Robin. So I know that that's going to go in there like that. Perfect. So there's my piece. This is going to be sitting under here like this, and then these are cut on an angle. So I will just sit that there, and it's going to go straight across like that. It's just a little tiny. Perfect. So what I can do is I can actually sew this piece together now on that angle, and I know that that angle is going to be right to go into my zip. So pull this down, put those together, and we're going to glue that onto there now. It's not hard. You just have to use a little bit of intuition and set it so it's going to be the right angle. So a little bit of glue, like that. And just stitch this across here, and that'll be one done. Okay, then we can do the other one on the same angle. So I'm going to stitch this again exactly like I've done. Remember, you've got your 3 millimeters aside, so I need to turn my zip around, make sure it's all butted together, and bring that up to there. And you're going right beside the angle of your zips. Okay. So just hold those threads and do your nice little 3 millimeter stitch. Now, if you haven't got one of these feet, you can use, oh, forgot to put my lid on. If you haven't got one of these feet, you can use your little zip foot. So you've got your different size zip feet. This one is for the larger machines, and this one is for the smaller machines. Now I actually prefer to use this foot on my big machine to do this job, because I can get my zip foot a lot closer than I can with my big one because of this bar here. So see how narrow this is? So I actually choose to use this one. Now you can also get this with the coating, the Teflon coating on the bottom, this zip foot, and they are extremely handy for doing zips. But you know what, this one did work. I was only doing a little bit of it, so it was fine. So I use that one rather than this one on this job. Okay, but for this one I can just use here. So I'm just going to hold those threads there and stitch across the side. Oop. Started too close to the edge there. Just pop that down, hold that again, wait till it starts, that's better, starts going. You don't want to sew in one place. There we go. Now all I do, I'll put my needle stop up actually because I'm using it up more than I am down. All you do to sew these on, it's so simple to sew the top to the bottom, is you just simply, this one's going this way, you simply sit that onto there. Remember, you've got to make sure you've got enough to sew up, and then this one is going to come up to there. See all this bit here? Because they are very, very long, these zips. You can actually just chop that off. And it gets rid of all that bulk in there. And actually, I might just do that with this one so I can show you how to put them together. There we go. This one under here. Now it's much easier for me to see. And this one's under there like that. So you just need that enough to stitch. That's going into there. Move your little tabs out of the road. And let's just sit this on top so we can have a look, and then we can see where to cut it. That one's going on like that. As long as we've got enough to sew up there. Perfect. And so the angle of this one needs to be pretty much like that. So you can see when when you're standing here, you can actually see where it needs to go to. So that is my angle there. So it's just like a little, nearly a triangle. So I've just folded that, and that's where I'm going to cut my leather. There we go. And then you can just double check it, make sure it's perfect. You can always trim a bit more if you need to. That's my angle, it's going onto there like that. You know what, I might just do a little bit more. Cool. So now I'm ready to sew this one on, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'll just put it on the leather this time. Nope, wrong way. There we go. And this is the only tricky bit in the whole bag. It's just so simple to do. Pull this away from you, bring these together, put that on an angle, give it a really good press down with your hand, and you've got your lovely little edge. Make sure all your zip are away, the ends of your zippers. Hold your thread and just stitch this in place. It's wonderful being able to do just top stitching. It's really, really nice. The reason why I'm not doing all the cutting, because I don't need to with this particular one, and I'd rather just see where I'm going with my threads. So now I've got my angle right. I can now stitch this on in one movement, like that. Righty-ho, so now we've got our zips ready to go. We've got the base of our bag ready to go. So I'm going to just turn this over, and I'm going to glue along this edge. So I'm just going to glue along here. You can also use a double-sided tape if you like, but I'm finding the glue works so well and it's so strong, and it's easy, so that's what I'm using. Now I can turn this over and position my zip. Just do that up for a minute, so I can position my zip. So the center of the zip is going to be there, and that's going to come all the way across here, and just give it a little press, and then bring this zip, I'll just bring it up for a minute, bring this zip end and position this beside the zip, make it nice and flat and flush, and push this all the way down to there. Okay, if you want to, you could put a little tiny clip to hold that at the end, but I tell you what, I find that those little holes mark my leather. So I haven't actually been using my clips, but if I do, I use it on this side and just on the very edge so that I don't damage my leather. Just on that very edge. So see how that's sitting nice and flat? And then when we go to do this one, I've got to find the other half of this to sew first, then that will be top stitched on afterwards. So when I find the other half of this will be top stitched first, then this will be done, and this will be done, this will be done, this will be done, and this gets top stitched. So now I can stitch this quite happily, and I'm going to do it from this edge, because remember I'm using this little narrow foot. But you could go and use your zip foot at this stage, but I'm finding that 3mm is a nice distance from the zip. So as I'm sewing it, what I'm actually doing is I'll move this down past where I'm going. So this one I'm starting from the edge, and you can see how well that glue has held that. It's very, very good. So I'm now just going to start it right from this edge, and again no back stitching because it's going to be re-stitched later. But if you want to get closer, you can use your zip foot. So nice and slow. Remember, I've got it on a 4 length. I've got my leather needle in. Beautiful, beautiful soft leather to sew with. Now I'm going to pull this down away from my stitching, and I'm just going to release that a bit because I think my zip needs to be a little bit closer there. That's better. I'd moved it over a little bit. And I can see my laser is going exactly where I was sewing. Brilliant. So I can see exactly where it's stitching. So when I come up to here, having the laser, I can stop it in exactly the right place. So I'm going to put my needle stop down function on, and I'm going to stop right at that point. 1, 2, 3. Now I can turn perfectly. I'm going to pull my zip back towards me. See how I'm going nice and slow to get a nice even stitch. Then I've got my needle down, I can pull my zip back up, and now I can carry on stitching. And that's how you insert your zip in anything actually, and just sew to the end of that. Now what will happen with this end of this the zip end here, this will now get cut right up through there, because that will be the shape of the bag, and this will be cut right down through here, and that will be the shape of the bag. So hopefully when I have a look, that's going to go like that. I'm hoping I have got my other piece. I may have to cut another one. I think I've actually used it by mistake. And that's all right. You don't need to see me stitch that anyway, because I've shown you how to double stitch the front. So I double stitch these two together and then top stitch this on exactly the same way from there to there. And that's the front of your bag. Now when you're going to be making the tabs on the side of your bag, what I did was I just got a piece of leather and I cut a 1-inch strip. So my tags on my bag here, that was 1 inch across. So I just did a 1-inch tab and I stitched it in as I sewed the bag in. So that's really no problem there. Now, when you've got a zip that's too long, so this zip matches these zips and it's too long for the bag, what you have to do is you have to be able to sew across one end. So if I take this off, this is just the hanger that was on it, and I put a piece of leather on this end, that's fine because I'm not having to sew across the zip. But what you need to know is what you do when you have got a metal zip, okay? So I'm just going to show you how I do it. Everyone will be different, but this is my way that I do it. So here's the end of my zip. We know how to do that. We straighten it off, correct? And there it is there. So just put a bit of leather on and that gives you a tab. But you need to have a tab on the other end as well. So this zip is going to have a tab there, but it needs to have a tab from here down, and all of this needs to go. So this I will cut off with pliers, but I need to sew a bit of leather on there. You cannot sew over your metal teeth. So I'll just check that length again. I'll do it to about there. I'm just going to mark that with a pencil actually, so I can, oh, black pencil's not going to work, is it? Just going to have to, no, it's just not going to work, Robin. You need something, oh, here we go, perfect, charcoal liner. Need something in white. So here's my charcoal liner, perfect. There's always something in your sewing toolkit. So there's my mark, that's where I want to put my piece of leather. So I'm just going to cut myself a little strip of leather. I'm going to use that for the other side, and I use this for this side. So here's my end. Now the best part of this is now I've got another zip on that end, so I can put an end on this one as well, both ends, and I've got another zip for another project. So what I do is I just put my leather on here, and I only stitch from here to here, and then I jump over and I stitch from there to there, because you cannot sew through that. You will break a needle. Okay, so I just stop. So I just lay this on my line here, and I just stitch from here to here, and this time very carefully, can I do one more stitch? Only just, and then lift it over, and then very carefully put it down like that, and then sew across. So very, very gently does it, okay? So I've got a big jump stitch there. I leave that, and then I go into the workshop, get the pliers and cut that off. So I'm only sewing this part here, and I'm not sewing any of that in, but I do cut it off so it's not so harsh. Okay, so that's how I do the end of my zip for the top, and this end would be done exactly the same. Okay, so it's not hard. Now I'll just get one more thing to show you so you can understand my little hooky thing. So this one I'm not using for this product, but I forgot to bring my metal ones home. But I'll just show you how you do your swivel hook. So this one here is a narrower one. So I need to cut my leather 2 centimetres, because 2 centimetres will fit in that swivel hook. So if I'm going to cut a piece here, I'm just going to use my ruler. Make sure I've got a straight line, and then lay it on my ruler, and 2 centimetres, this is an inches ruler, so 2 centimetres is 3/4. Perfect. 2 centimetres. Yep, that's exactly right. So I'm just going to cut this down here, and this will just go through here like this, and this is how I make my tabs. Now when I do these, I actually do put my zipper foot on, because I want it really, really close to that edge if I want to hold that tight. But if I want it loose, so there's a bit of movement, I can just use the normal foot. So I'm just going to show you with the zip foot, and I will explain what I mean about the 2 feet. So this is a narrow zip foot for the older machines. So I'm going to, you tell it I've got a number 4 foot on, and it's a standard 4 foot. Now you watch what happens when I move my needle position to the left. I can get really, really close to that edge, because my edge of my foot is narrow. Okay, so if I stitch across here now, I'm going to get a really nice close stitch, and I will go reverse, and I'll put my needle up and take my work out. Now if I was to use the zipper foot that comes with my big machine, and I tell my machine I've got this one on, this is called the 4D. Needle position is right over as far as it can go, but I can't get as close because of the bulk of the foot. I have to go a little bit further over. So this is why sometimes I prefer this foot. Okay, because this can't get as close because of that part of the foot. So this is why I chose to use this little narrow foot here, because I can get really, really close because there's no bar. I know it's odd, but I like both feet. So this is how I put my swivel hooks on, and I just trim it back, and then as I'm sewing my oh, pretend it's over here, as I'm sewing my round the outside of my bag, this is where they go. This goes on to the end of your belt, but I'm just showing you. Be the same as sewing this on here. Okay, so I just sew it in with it, but I like to stitch it first so it's nice and strong, and that's how you do them all. So I do 2 on one side, 2 on the other side, and then on the end of my belt I sew on my little swivel hook. I think they're brilliant. And to finish the bag, I just straight stitch around it like that. Okay, so after the break I'm going to show you how to put a lining on a zip. Okay.